The show today with Bill Paterson. You will know him from his countless films, TV shows, Comfort and Joy in the 80s, Fleabag more recently, or as the voice on BBC's The Repair Shop. But Scottish actor Bill Paterson has recently lent his dulcet tones to a new project. First published in 2013, Captain Robin Hutchison's book, Hurricane Hutch's Top 10 Ships of the Clyde, follows Hutchison's career as one of the youngest captains to serve on the Firth of Clyde. Bill narrates the audiobook of this best-selling memoir, bringing to life Hutchison's colourful stories of the Clyde, the people who worked there, and its iconic ships. And I'm delighted to say that Bill is here with us today to tell us about the experience of bringing this story to audio. Welcome to the afternoon show, Bill.
Oh, how nice. Lovely to be here. Great.
So good to have you on. And what a fascinating listen this is. I listened on the audiobook that you've performed. What drew you to this project? What was it about this book, this story?
Well, I'd reckon if you could talk about a labour of love, you know, I think that this was it. I mean, I grew up just listening to Debbie Harry there on Blondie. We're sort of the same age. She makes you proud to be 75, doesn't she, Debbie Harry? And so I grew up in that heyday, in a sense, just beyond probably the top heydays, but on the 40s and 50s and 60s of the Clyde Coast steamers. And I travelled on virtually all of them. I kind of collected it in a way, you know, you sort of, like you collect car numbers. You used to collect what steamer you had been on. So I was able to share those years, and no doubt many times was under the captainship of as a humble passenger on board one of Hurricane Hutch's travels. So it was a labour of love to relive that landscape and that time and those ships.
Wonderful. Tell us about Hurricane Hutch and the figure he was. Obviously, clearly important man. He captained many of these ships.
Yeah, and he had a wide regular career in general ocean-going shipping until he finally settled. I think he lived in Gourock or in Greenock, Gourock, and settled to a much more homely life of skippering a whole host of Clyde shipping. Some of them the beautiful cruising steamers like the Jeannie Deans and the Jupiter and of course the Waverley that we now were lucky enough just about to still have, and the Talisman, all these paddles. And they also did the regular running back and forward on the Maids, the ferries that crossed back and forward to Dunoon and to Rothsay, and then the Glen Sannox to Arran, and then out to the islands. And he did them all. He literally is probably the last person, the last real career that you could have had on that kind of shipping. So he was a delightful man. I loved the foreword from his daughter, who says that she used to lie in bed at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning and hear the hurricanes blowing up the Firth of Clyde up the tail of the bank, and listen to her dad locking the door and heading out into those seas. Just the thought of that, snuggling in your bed while your old dad takes the Talisman across from Weems Bay to Millport is quite something, isn't it?
Yeah, and sadly Captain Rowan passed away a couple of years ago, but his daughter, you just mentioned there, she described your narration as bringing warmth and authority to her father's story. This must have felt a bit of a responsibility?
Well, in a way it did. I mean, I've kind of slightly avoided doing audiobooks, even though they're now incredibly popular, because I've never felt that at ease with them. I've never felt good at it. I don't like doing lots of dialogue, 150 different voices is not my game, but I like the narrative stuff. But I broke the habit of at least a decade and a half to do this, because I thought, well, sometimes a finger points at you and says, well, you know as much about that story as anybody, other than, of course, great Hurricane Hutch, so known, so named because he could take a boat out in any weather. And I thought, well, this is pointing at me, so I loved doing it. And you do it in a day. It's only a day's work, or was it 2? I can't remember. And it's just a glorious way of spending the day.
Well, a labour of love, as you described it. Let's just pause for a moment, because we have a short clip. We're glad that you did take that break from a decade and a half or whatever to do this. Let's just have a listen to you in action. Here we go.
One summer, I ended up master on 18 different boats in 21 days. 1 minute handling paddlers, the next turbines, and then on to the motor vessels, each with their own characteristics and idiosyncrasies. My rotas required me to join a new ship each day and meant me scurrying backwards and forwards between Ardrossan, Ayr, Craigendorn, Gourock, Fairley and central Glasgow. I just about wore out a car trying to meet the schedules.
A clip there from the audiobook Hurricane Hutch's Top 10 Ships of the Clyde by Captain Robin Hutchison, narrated by my guest Bill Paterson. What I also took away from that was just the skill that was involved in that job of docking and mooring these boats.
You couldn't be more right, Grant. I mean, recently there's been a couple of incidents with the Waverley down in the Firth, and you can just see how difficult. I mean, a friend of mine sent me a picture of, I think it was the Duchess of Hamilton, which was quite an elegant, slightly, very much like a mini Cunarder. And it's sailing into Millport Bay, where I spent half of my life when I was a boy. And Millport Bay is famous for it's got two islands, the islands outside. It's got rocks everywhere. And it's about 5 feet deep, I think, at some parts. And to take a ship like that in and out of these piers, even in calm weather, must have been like landing, like the guys landing on the moon, So I think it's, the skill was... It was a lot, and also, of course, almost forgotten, as you could tell when there are incidents.
It's interesting hearing you talk about how treasured the Waverley is, because I grew up through here in Edinburgh, and so obviously missed out on that, becoming being able to jump onto these boats and ships growing up like you did. But I do remember vividly there was a massive day out at primary school where we all got a bus through to the West Coast and just for a trip on the Waverley. So that was my first go-to. That was the first thing I looked at in the book to find.
You were seeing life for the first time. You were getting away from Edinburgh and seeing life in the raw. And the Clyde Coast. Well, you see, what you forget, and what comes over in that little excerpt you did, or at least of his journeys to these various piers, is that just the complexities of these schedules and these boats, and how active and how busy the Clyde was in those days. There was ships on every horizon, not just the major shipping that was still coming up to the port of Glasgow, and also the shipbuilding that was going on. There were ships doing their trials on the measured mile off Arran, and there was the general boating. So that the river was seething with life in a way that sadly it doesn't. It's a shadow of itself in that respect. No?
Yeah, because that aspect is very interesting, because the book talks a lot about the Clyde as a thriving community and workplace, as well as the transformation that took place over Robin's career. So it's about social history as well as about ships and shipping, isn't it?
It's exactly that, and because he encapsulated, and because he passed away in I think 2018 or so, but he was able to see the success of the book, published a few years earlier, and the reprints, etc. That he knew there was he had literally made his mark not only on the ships but on laying down the history of and it's not a history for the anoraks. I mean, I've got my anorak on at the moment. You can't see it, thank God for radio. But I just have a slight whiff of the anorak about me. But this book is not designed for that. This book is a personal and humane and family and a sort of general purpose, general public's interest in these great ships and what they meant on the Clyde. Well, so it's the anoraks could enjoy it, but real people will also love it.
No, you're absolutely right, and that's certainly one of my takeaways from having a good listen the other night. Bill, while you're here, we do have to ask you about a couple of your other projects that you're so well known for, notably the repair shop. Now, I can't stress enough just how wonderful I think this programme is and what a joy it is to watch, and it's one of those things that when you flick it on, you're going to get taken away by the story of these items. What's it like for you to watch it? Is it? Do you get involved too?
Oh, I do, to some extent. I mean, I've not brought any items. I wouldn't risk that. But here we've got a friend bringing in something that you would like fixed. I've not done that. But right from the word go, I did the first series of it, and then I couldn't do the second series, in other words, for a bit because of other commitments. And now I'm luckily enough, I'm back. But I just knew from the first frame that there was something they'd got right in this format, and of course the joy is the skill of the craftspeople, plus their kind of lack of ego. They don't have any. None of them are showing off, and none of them are trying to score points off each other or trying to be funny. You know, difficult pongy gags that don't work. It's all just they really love the work, and they can explain their skills. So I think it's a wonderful format. I just hope they don't BBC doesn't get too excited and start doing celebrity repair shop, or I'm in a repair shop, get me out of here, or
surely
Strictly
not.
Come Repairing. I mean, they'll be discussing it somewhere in some corridor.
Oh, please, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. As it were.
So true, Grant.
Yeah.
So true.
Let's actually have a little clip. We've got a clip from one of the episodes here. Let's have a listen.
Welcome to the repair shop, where precious but faded treasures.
This is bad.
I don't think I've ever seen a chair quite so broken as this.
Are restored to their former glory.
That is lovely. That is lovely, isn't it?
Furniture restorer Jay Blades
Bringing history back to life is what makes the repair shop so special.
and a dream team of expert craftspeople
Amazing. It's a bit like brain surgery.
come together to work their magic.
From Dickie Bird and Comfort and Joy back in the day, and of course, when working in local radio myself, it also rings true what you did there.
Well, I mean, if I'd seen you or listened to you at work, Grant, I'd known exactly how to do it.
No,
I was dipping my toe in it, but you're very skilled at it.
You captured it beautifully, but also, if you think of your work recently as well, Guilt, Fleabag as well, and projects like we've just been talking about here, you choose well.
Well, it's kind. I think choice is an important part of it, but it's luck. It's luck if you choose the right ones. It's also great good fortune to be offered them in the first place. So, Fleabag came in an odd way because I was able to see the first episode of Fleabag for various reasons. It wasn't going out as its format, so I was able to see it before I committed myself to doing it. And if I'd read the script, I might have said, "Ooh, this is tricky stuff," in the wrong hands. This could be a bit fruity and maybe a little bit ripe in the wrong hands. But once I saw how Phoebe operated and the standard that was being set throughout, I thought, well, who could not be part of this? So I was lucky in that respect. Yeah.
And a bit of a rogue in Guilt, a bit of a bad chap in Guilt as well.
A bit of a bad egg, yes. Sadly, I couldn't do the second. They're making another series just now, but they had to adjust it a bit because it was during the filming was during the depths of the issues in December and January with travel and COVID, and it felt a little bit, not so much unsafe, but just flaky and upsetting because I'd done a filming job in October that had stopped and started 2 or 3 times because of COVID protocols. So I felt that the risk was a little high. But no, it's a great series. I think in Guilt, Mark and Jamie, the two brothers, they grew up together.
They did.
The two actors in school in your hometown of Edinburgh, in Leith, and it really shows. They just have the same language, and they played beautifully together. I think it's a wonderful combination, and set the baseline for the series.
Yeah, it's just a shame we won't see you in Guilt too. But Bill, so chuffed to have you on the show. Sorry, our time has run away with us. We could talk
Lovely to talk to you.
But nice to talk to you.
Lovely.
Bill, thanks for spending time with us today. Bill Paterson, thank you.
Thank you.